Welcome to Mosport Park. This is the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Tilley along with Pat Gonzalez for race number 1 of this summer-long championship here in Canada. Pat, the 4 major sponsors, Rothmans, Porsche, Pirelli, and Shell, we're excited to have them back, but there are some changes this year.
Well, there are some changes, Joe. The biggest change, of course, is this brand new Diet 7-Up guest car. Jacques Villeneuve will drive it here at Mosport. He's qualified it on the front row. And in all of the upcoming events, other international driving stars will be behind the wheel of that car. We also have a couple of drivers who have moved on. Scott Goodyear to the IMSA Series and Stefan Preux to Formula 3000 in Europe. They will not be part of the series, but what that does, it opens up an opportunity for drivers such as David Tennyson and Richard Laporte, who were rookies last year, to move up there and battle the likes of Richard Spinard. We also have a veteran driver back in the series, Bill Adam, who was a front runner in 1987. Bill should be one of the drivers going for that championship this year. So we're excited. It should be another great season of racing the Porsche 944 Turbos.
And, of course, Richard Spinard has to be the favorite this year. He's a 1987 series champion. I asked Spinard about his chances.
Until you start the race and you see where you're slower, why you're qualifying third. Right now I'm third, but you know, there's only like 1/10 of a second separating myself and Laporte, and 300 of a second between me and Jacques. So it's very close, but what's interesting to find out once you start the race is where Laporte is going to be faster. If it's on the straight line, that's going to be hard, because you will be able to go slower through a corner and motor away from us on the straight line. That will make it easier for him. But yet to be seen where he's faster, because we didn't have a chance to follow each other in qualifying, and that makes it a bit more difficult to plan ahead.
And Richard will definitely have his hands full today with people like Richard Laporte, Jacques Villeneuve, and Jacques Bienvenu. Here's Pat with a closer look at these Porsche 944 Turbos.
I'm standing here in Porsche Park overlooking Turn 1 at Mosport, where many Porsche owners have parked their cars and are getting ready to watch this opening race in the series. This is a Porsche 944 Turbo, the street version that is the basis for the race car, but there are some dramatic differences. First of all, the race car is about 300 pounds lighter. It has a much stiffer suspension to handle the tremendous cornering speeds here at Mosport and on other racetracks that we'll be running on in the series. Inside the car are some of the major differences. The roll cage has been added, the special driver's seat, and the safety harness to hold the driver in. Underneath the hood, the horsepower out of the Porsche engine is about the same as the street version, about 250. That'll translate into speeds of about 240 kilometers an hour up the back straight here at Mosport. One of the major changes this year is a brand new compound of the Pirelli P0 tire. The crews that can find the right tire pressure and the right suspension setup to make this tire work to its optimum here at Mosport will probably be those that are running up near the front.
The 30-lap race is twice the usual distance for these events at Mosport, which brings into play several factors, one of which is driver fatigue. A lot of these competitors have been off for 7 months. We'll be back with the start of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup right after this. Welcome back to Mosport for the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. We're all set for race number 1 of the 1989 Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup. Here's Pat with a look at the grid.
Qualifying times were close, with the top 8 drivers separated by less than a second. On the front row for today's race, Jacques Villeneuve and Richard Spinard. Row 2, it's Richard Laporte and Jacques Bienvenu. Laporte actually had the fastest qualifying time, but was pushed back a row for a technical infraction. David Tennyson and Rick Bai will share row 3, Tennyson in the Denon Audio car number 19, and Bai in his familiar Reebok Porsche. The 4th row, Chris Gleason and Uli Bieri. Bill Adam and Ludwig Heimrath in the 5th row. The 6th row, Jacques Liliev and Norman Boyer. In the 7th row, Larry Caruso and David Seabrook. Row 8, it's David King and Reinhold Schill. Row number 9, Ted Powell and Len Campbell. And in the 10th row, Terry Martell and Mike Williamson.
The weaving back and forth that you see helps heat up those Pirelli tires to racing temperature for the best grip. Remember now, everyone runs on the same equipment in this series, and as the cars approach that start, it's critical to have everything ready.
Villeneuve and Spinard at the front of the field, slowing the pace down to a crawl as they come through turn 10. All eyes focused on the starter stand, looking for the green flag to get this race underway, and the green flies here at Mosport. The Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series is underway into turn 1. Laporte looks to the inside of Villeneuve, but Villeneuve will take the lead as they hit the bottom of turn 1. Spenard will move into second place. Laporte runs third, and you're on board Richard Laporte as he sits in the third place spot into turn 2. And ahead of him, you can see the leader, Villeneuve and Spenard. They're starting to open up a little bit of an advantage. Through turn number 2 as the drivers head through turn 3 here at Mosport on the opening lap. It is Villeneuve in the Diet 7-Up guest car, followed by Spenard, then Laporte in the third place spot. And again, you're on board the Sony Handycam giving us these beautiful pictures of the opening lap action here at Mosport. They go under the bridge, into the chute, and it is still Villeneuve and Spenard running 1-2. Laporte closing it up just a little bit as they go through this tricky Moss corner now for the first time, and Laporte has caught the 2 leaders as he tries to pick up the draft now. The first run up the Andretti back straightaway here at Mosport.
They're just about to crest the hill, and there you can see Villeneuve trying to break that draft. That long train of cars behind him trying to take advantage of the draft.
On the back straightaway, Villeneuve still weaving back and forth. Spenard hangs right in there at the end of the back straightaway. Spenard looks to the inside, but he will have to follow Villeneuve into the S's, and just a car length separating Villeneuve and Spenard. It is Laporte in third, Jacques Bienvenu back in the fourth place position as the front-running 4 drivers tied together as they come through. Oh, and it is Villeneuve sideways onto the pit straight. He gathers it back up and will continue, but Jacques Villeneuve almost stuffed it into the wall, but a beautiful piece of driving from the onboard camera aboard Rick Bye's car. You can see how the field has strung out somewhat here as they start lap number 2. It is still Villeneuve, your leader, followed by Spenard in the second place position. And there at the bottom of turn 2, you can see Spenard mounting another challenge as he looks to the inside again. A bit of a gap back to Laporte, and here is Spenard on the inside. Richard Spenard will take over the lead. So evidently the problem that Villeneuve had coming on the front straightaway has affected him here on lap number 2.
Spenard now the leader into turn 5. You know, Pat, I don't think Villeneuve had a chance after that slide in turn 10.
Here it is on the replay. Villeneuve coming out of turn 10. He gets it all crossed up, goes sideways, really wrestling with the wheel, but gets the car back under control. Now he sits in the second place position. It is Spenard, the new leader, as he comes up to complete lap number 2. So Spenard, the leader. Villeneuve in second. Laporte still runs third. Jacques Bienvenu in car number 89, the Dicom Express Porsche, back in the fourth place position. And there's David Tennyson now, last year's Rookie of the Year in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup. Tennyson runs in the 5th place position, and in fact it looks as though he is starting to reel in the front-running 4 cars. So this is quickly going to become a 5-driver battle for the lead as Tennyson works it down through the bottom of turn 2.
And behind Tennyson in 6th spot, it's Uli Bieri in the red car, then Ludwig Heimrath, Bill Adam, and Rick Bye back in 9th now after qualifying on the 3rd row. Looks like he's having some trouble. He had some trouble qualifying yesterday, and now, yes, he's waving Chris Gleason by. Perhaps those gremlins are back. Earlier, we asked him what happened yesterday.
Coming into corner 10, which is the last corner before the pit straight, we ended up, the engine blew a seal in the oil filter, and proceeded to dump all the oil from the engine out of the engine and onto the exhaust system. And apparently, I didn't see it, but it was a pretty big fireball going down the pits. And my first indication was that the back wheel started to slide, and it got a little slippery from all the oil. I backed off and hooked the wheels up again and got on it again, and it just kept sliding and started to stink pretty good inside the car. I looked at the oil pressure was low, and I turned it off.
Some close racing a little further back in the pack. It's Liliev, Caruso, Campbell, Norman Boyer, David Seabrook, who's got that teal-colored car.
Richard Spenard has opened up about a 30-car-length lead over this great second-place battle between Villeneuve and Laporte. Then it's Jacques Bienvenu in 4th. David Tennyson runs in the 5th place position, and there is number 3, Bill Adam. He is having quite a scrap just inside the top 10. There's your leader, Spenard, down the chute, up in a Moss corner. You can see how much of an advantage he has moved out over Villeneuve, the early leader. Then it's Laporte, Bienvenu, Tennyson, and then a ferocious battle for 6th on the inside. Heimrath and Bieri. Bieri almost getting run off the racetrack. Heimrath will take over that 6th place position.
And there's a look at the leaderboard. Spenard, Villeneuve, Laporte, Bienvenu, then David Tennyson. In 6th spot now, Ludwig Heimrath and Bill Adam, Bieri, Chris Gleason, and Jacques Liliev.
Some great racing here in the opening laps. There's number 29, Reinhold Schill, who has run off the track at 5B. He'll get it turned around and continue on up the back straightaway. And here's number 8, Rick Bye. He is slowing down on the Andretti back straightaway. problems on the Rick by Reebok Porsche. That race for second place really starting to heat up as Bienvenu starts to close. Still Tennyson in 5th, Heimrat 6th. There's the battle for 8th now between Uli Bieri and Chris Gleason. You're back with the leader, Richard Spinard, as he goes through Moss Corner. And right now, you're on board Richard Laporte's cars. He's all over Villeneuve. Gets out onto the grass, and it'll be Richard Laporte around into the second place position. Villeneuve made the mistake coming out of Moss Corner, and there was Laporte as he takes over the second place position. Now Villeneuve trying to pull up alongside as they come up the back straightaway, and they're going to be side by side up the back straightaway as now number 89, Bienvenu, gets into the thick of it. And the three drivers having a war at the end of the back straightaway into the S's. Laporte will hold out a second, and it'll be Bienvenu in a third. So Villeneuve, who led here on the opening lap, has been pushed back into the fourth place position, and this has moved Tennyson a little bit closer to this three-driver battle going on for the second place position.
A new train down the pit straight, nose to tail for second, third, and fourth. Stay with us. We'll be back with more of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. Welcome back. We're midway through race number 1 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup, and there's David King. He's just hit the arm cone. He's out of this race.
Side by side at the end of the back straightaway, the battle for second. Jacques Bienvenu up to the outside of Richard Laporte into the S's, and Bienvenu will take over the second place position. There you can see from the onboard Sony Handycam, Richard Laporte trying to chase back down Bienvenu as they come out of the pit straightaway. Bienvenu getting up onto the speed curbing as he uses every inch of the racetrack to try to stay ahead of Laporte. And this has been a race-long battle for the second place spot. And the veteran Bienvenu finally able to get around going into the S's. Bienvenu coming up on Terry Martel in the black Porsche. He makes his way around up to the outside. Here is Laporte trying to pull the same move. Laporte right up on Martel, and he does make his way past. There is the battle for third place now as Villeneuve, Tennyson, and Heimrath have all closed in on Richard Laporte in a ferocious battle going on for third.
Now on board with David Tennyson, part of the train. A great race for the Thornhill youngster. He's showing the maturity it takes to win in this series, driving hard but smart. And one of the reasons, too, that he'll be part of the Canadian team to drive in the Turbo Cup support race at Le Mans, France later this season.
Richard Laporte leading that train out of the back straightaway. A tremendous battle for third. Here's one of the drivers involved in it, Jacques Villeneuve, in the 7-Up guest car. Earlier, we had a chance to talk to Jacques about his race strategy.
Well, it's a bit different for me. I don't have any right to the points or the money, so I don't want to be a spoiler in there and hurt somebody else with points or whatever. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to play it. I might wait or I might go. It depends on how the car's going to feel right away.
Well, Jacques went from the opening lap when he led, but this man has led since lap 2. That is Richard Spinard. There you can see the tremendous gap. Then the second place man, Bienvenu, but on the inside, Richard Laporte takes over second place going into the S's. It has been back and forth. It's Laporte now back into second, Bienvenu third. Then it is Villeneuve fourth, Tennyson fifth, Heimrat sixth. And now it is 5 drivers locked together in the race for the second place position. Back up across the line to complete yet another lap. And some of the best Rothmans Porsche racing we have seen here at Mosport. Down at the bottom of turn 1, Villeneuve slides that car, closing on 89. Jacques Bienvenu. Bienvenu giving that second place spot back to Laporte. Part of the great crowd on hand here at Mosport enjoying this race for second. And now Laporte starting to open up some ground on Bienvenu and Villeneuve. And these drivers are really pushing the Pirelli tires and these cars at the limit. Bill Adam trying to join the fray for second. Spinard aboard that number 4 Motormaster Porsche leads. Then it is Laporte, Bienvenu. There is Villeneuve in the 7-Up guest car. Then Tennyson in the blue car, followed by Heimrath, and then Bill Adam. That train back on the back straightaway, and you're alongside in the driver's seat with Jacques Villeneuve as he works the draft up the Andretti back straightaway.
And Pat, that's Ludwig Heimrath, the veteran, trying to pull out and pass David Tennyson and move into fifth spot. He's followed by Bill Adam and Uli Bieri in the red car.
Richard Laporte has opened up some ground. There's the battle now for third. It is Bienvenu, number 89, trying to hold off Villeneuve, Tennyson, Heimrath, and then Bill Adams. So it's a 5-way battle now for that third place position as Laporte continues to pull away from Bienvenu. Those next 5 drivers are just glued together as they come onto the pit straight. And by the start-finish line into the bottom of turn 1, you're with David Tennyson. as he works on Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve, who led this race on the opening lap before almost putting it into the wall at the end of that first lap when he got it completely sideways.
And there's our leader, Richard Spinard, cruising along in his Monomaster downtown fine cars Porsche. And look at the lead he has opened up over Richard Laporte.
Laporte holding on a second. Here's Bienvenu sideways in turn 3. Bienvenu off the racetrack, and he smacks the tire walls on the outside of turn 3. And this has got to be a bitter disappointment for Bienvenu, who had such a good run going here this afternoon at Mosport.
Here's a look from the inside of Jacques Villeneuve's car. Bienvenu hits the brakes. He skids right off the racetrack. Meanwhile, while this is happening, David Tennyson slips through on the inside into third position.
There is Jacques Bienvenu, the veteran driver who was 6th in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Championships a year ago. And I tell you what, he's going to try to get back into this race. What determination from Jacques Bienvenu. He's going to give it another run here this afternoon. And Bienvenu earlier talked about his preparation for this year's Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup.
I was not sure if I was fitting on the city because I was getting older and older at each day, and like everybody for sure, but racing against guys like Spinard or Scott Goodyear or Villeneuve or Laporte, those guys are much younger than I am. And I decided to return to the school. Last year I had 3 advanced driving schools, and I improved my time at Mont-Tremblant, I improved my time here a lot, and I improved my time at Shannonville. And I'm taking another school at the end of June at Mont-Tremblant again this year.
Bienvenu is back in this race, and he's certainly not giving up. He's right back at it with number 71. That's Larry Caruso. They're now running in 10th and 11th, but almost a lap down.
Bienvenu trying to pick off as many positions as he can. Each spot is worth more points. And, of course, last year, just 6 points decided the championship between Scott Goodyear and Richard Spinard. On the back straightaway, the battle for third. Tennyson, and side by side, Heimrath will take over fourth as he pushes Villeneuve back into the 5th place position. So Jacques, who led this race on the opening lap, has been pushed back. There is part of the Reebok crew looking on as their driver, Rick Bai, is back out there on the racetrack after a trip to pit lane for repairs. And Rick Bai has battled through a lot of adversity here this weekend, but he's back out there again trying to pick up as many points here at this opening round. There is the 2nd place driver, Laporte, the gap back to 3rd, Tennyson, and there's Villeneuve off into the grass. Bill Adam up to the outside. Adam will put Villeneuve back another position, so Jacques continues to drop further back through the top 10 as Uli Bieri now comes up to challenge.
There's Laporte in 2nd, followed by Tennyson and Heimrath. Bill Adam now moved up to 5th after qualifying 10th. Adam finally starting to get the hang of these turbo Porsches. He's driven in the Rothmans Porsche Series before, but this is the first time he's driven the Porsche 944 Turbo.
The race for 3rd involving David Tennyson in the blue car, Ludwig Heimrath, the veteran, in the white car, up the straightaway. Just about a half a car length separating the 2 drivers. Heimrath looked as though he's going to try to make a move to the inside going into the S's, but he just couldn't quite do it. And he's right there with Tennyson as they swing back through and into turn number 9.
Now we've got a problem. There's a yellow flag, a full course yellow. Now there's a pace car coming out on the circuit to slow down the field. There's definitely something wrong here.
Well, we understand, Joe, that there's been a problem with the communication system for the corner workers, and they, of course, would call for ambulances if it was needed in the event of a major crash. So without that communication system around the circuit, they have brought out the pace car to gather up the field, try to get the problem corrected and get these drivers back under racing speed. But you can see the entire field is slow. There is Richard Laporte, the onboard camera showing the leader just up ahead of him. That is Richard Spinard, and there, of course, is the pace car and the yellow caution flags out right around the circuit.
Now this could be a real shame as we're nearing the end of this race. The laps are counted under the yellow flag. This race could finish under the yellow if that communications problem is not fixed.
That would be a major disappointment to certainly some of the drivers here. Others, of course, it's an advantage because the big lead that Spinard had has now been closed up.
There's the leaderboard. Spinard, Laporte, Tennyson, Heimrath, and Bill Adam now in 5th spot. Then it's Uli Bieri, Jacques Villeneuve, Chris Gleason, Jacques Liliev, Larry Caruso. That's how they would finish if this race finished under the yellow flag.
We're hopeful of getting back to green flag racing as one of the drivers is slowed on the back straightaway. That is Bill Adam, number 3, as he is having problems.
A tough break for Bill Adam, who would be running 5th. We'll be back at Mosport right after this. Welcome back to Mosport. We're into the concluding laps of race number 1 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. We're still running under the yellow flag, but it looks like they have that communication problem sorted out, and we'll be running under the green very shortly.
The pace car coming through turn 9. It pulls off to the right. We should get a green. Spinard leads the field, single file. Onto the start-finish straightaway, and the green flag is out. We're back to racing here in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup. Spinard leads them down through turn 1. You're on board with David Tennyson, the third-place driver. Just ahead of him, Richard Laporte. Tennyson, you can see, fighting the steering wheel just a little bit. Back into turn 2. There's your leader, Spinard, followed by Laporte and then Tennyson. Things have strung out just a little bit. Heimrath runs back in the 4th place spot. So Spinard opens up a few car lengths. And now the battle is for 5th, and it is David Seabrook. Number 17 has hit the tire walls off the racetrack at the bottom of turn 2. There's Bill Adam. He's become a spectator on the back straightaway here at Mosport. The leader, Spinard, followed by Laporte, then Tennyson, as the front-running 3 drivers now have opened up a gap side by side. That is Uli Bieri will move around. Number 7, Heimrath, into the 4th place position, as will Villeneuve. Problems on the Heimrath car.
Heimrath had been challenging for 3rd, but now he's slowed down considerably. Bieri, Villeneuve, Gleason to pass him. Now a lot of traffic goes by.
Richard Laporte mounting a challenge for the lead as he closes to it. Then just a few car lengths of Richard Spinard, who has led since lap number 2. The drivers get the last lap indication side by side into the S's. Norman Boyer and Len Campbell touch. Campbell wrestling his car, trying to get it back under control, and he does, but there was some heavy contact there between Norman Boyer and Len Campbell. Back with the leaders. It is Spinard, followed by Laporte, Tennyson, all by himself in 3rd. Now the battle for 4th. That is Uli Bieri, Jacques Villeneuve, and then right behind him is Chris Gleason.
Jacques Villeneuve has been involved in some intense racing. He's been very hard on those tires throughout the day. And there goes Chris Gleason past Jacques Villeneuve and into 5th position.
That big slide that Jacques had on the opening lap could have affected his tires, and they might be going off just a little bit in this closing lap. Out of Moss Corner now for the final time. Bieri just ahead of Gleason, and then Jacques Villeneuve. Here are the leaders, Spinard and Laporte. One last run up the back straightaway here at Mosport. And if Laporte is going to get Spinard, he's going to have to do it going into the S's. At the end of the back straightaway, Spinard holding off Richard Laporte. From the onboard Sony Handycam, you can see just how much racetrack Laporte must make up. Just 2 corners to go. They're through turn number 9, coming into the final corner. Spinard by a few car lengths. It looks like he will take the checkered flag for the win, and there it is. Richard Spinard, the winner. David Tennyson through the final corner. Tennyson has had a great run here this afternoon at Mosport, and he will take the checkered flag to finish in 3rd.
David Tennyson wins a drag race with Uli Bieri right down to the wire to earn 3rd spot. But what a race for Richard Spinard, who leads all the way from the 2nd lap. There's a look at the final standings. Spinard followed by Laporte, David Tennyson, Uli Bieri takes 4th. Jacques Villeneuve rounds out the top 5. In 6th spot, it's Chris Gleason, then Jacques Liliev, Larry Caruso, Norman Boyer in 9th, and Ted Powell with his best finish ever in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series, a 10th place finish.
We've made our way to the victory stand along with a great crowd that's here for the presentations.
Pat, an interesting start to our 1989 Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series.
Well, Joe, some of the young drivers that we talked about, Tennyson and Laporte, first-year rookies last year, they showed that they've really improved, 2nd and 3rd today. And, of course, Richard Spinard taking the first step towards winning the championship this year.
Join us next time for round 2. For Pat Gonzalez, I'm Joe Tilley. Good afternoon.